Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for a conversation with the candidates. My name is Mark Parisi, and I'm the president of Howell, New Jersey First, which is a nonprofit organization focused on educating and advocating about local issues. I want to first recognize special guests in our audience this evening. The president of the Howell Township Board of Education, Christy Mangano. I'd like to also recognize the mayoral candidate, John Leggio, sitting in the back, as well as council candidate Betty Velez-Gimbel, sitting up here. I want to thank the Board of Ed candidates that are sitting next to me over here. Thank you for coming here tonight, and as well as any of your spouses or family members that are in attendance tonight as well. I would like to thank my Howell NJ First team who helped organize this event. You know who you are. You got Stephen Mirabello sitting up here with me. I got Paige over by the door. I got Larry behind me working the sound tonight and helped set up the room. Thank you, Larry. I also want to thank the Howell Township Public School District for allowing us to use this venue tonight, and Lance Roman for video recording. This event is being live streamed on the Howell, New Jersey First Facebook page and is also being recorded for future public viewing. We respectfully request the audience refrain from making any audible comments or outbursts in support of or in opposition to any statements made by the candidates. Anyone who causes a disturbance will be asked to leave. We also request audience refrain from clapping after any candidate makes a statement or answers a question. So, before we get started, let's give them all a round of applause now. While the community has expressed a variety of concerns at Board of Education meetings, at various committee meetings, on social media, and in response to the requests for candidate questions, of which we received none, Howell NJ First has chosen to ask the candidates questions that are within the scope and influence of the position of a board member. The candidates were not given tonight's questions, but were provided topics from which the questions were formulated. Candidates will not be asked questions regarding pending legal matters or any matters that would create a conflict for current or future board members. I'm going to go over the format and the ground rules now. The candidates have been seated in order of their ballot position starting from my left to right. I will introduce them. I have Maggie Lazur, Suzanne Gabriel, Jennifer Okerson, Dr. Stephen Levine, Frank Miletto Jr., and Dr. Sarah Moran. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to make an opening statement. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question. There will be 6 total questions. Questions 1, 3, and 5 will be answered from left to right. Questions 2, 4, and 6 will be answered from right to left. Each candidate will have an optional 30-second rebuttal. After all answers have been given, I will ask if anyone wants a rebuttal. Candidates will raise their hand and will be called on in the order in which the question was answered. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to make a closing statement. With the support of my timekeeper to my left, Stephen, candidates will observe all time limits. When your time is over, please finish your sentence. Adhering to the time limits ensures fairness for all candidates. Stephen has a yellow placard, which he will hold up when there's 30 seconds left, and a red placard that he will hold up when your time is ended. I also want to state that all of the candidates that are here tonight were notified about this event approximately 1 month ago, and everyone confirmed that they would be attending tonight. Yesterday, Mr. Matthew Withers contacted me to notify me he would not be attending this event, and no reason was provided. That is all I have, and we will get started with conversation with the candidates. For our opening statement, we did a random drawing for the selection of who would give their opening statement. The order is Dr. Sarah Moran, Jennifer Okerson, Frank Miletto, Suzanne Gabriel, Stephen Levine, and Maggie Lazur. So for your opening statement, Dr. Sarah Moran.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Sarah Moran, and before we begin, I'd like to extend my heartfelt gratitude and thanks to Howell First for hosting this event, and to all of you for taking the time to be with us tonight. I'm truly honored to have this opportunity to connect with you. I'd also like to express my appreciation to my fellow candidates for being here and sharing their insights. As a mother of a third grader and a kindergartner, the wife of a dedicated freehold teacher, a doctorately prepared registered nurse, and a Howell resident for 11 years, I am deeply invested in this community. I've had the privilege of serving my community by being a Sunday school teacher and also the T-ball commissioner for Howell Central Little League. I'm running for Board of Education on the platform of fiscal responsibility, honesty, and the perspective of a parent, values that reflect who I am and what I aim to bring to the table. Thank you again for the opportunity, and I look forward to sharing more about myself tonight.
Zach. Jennifer Okerson.
My name is Jennifer Okerson, and I have been a Howell Board of Ed member for the past 7 years. I have been a supervisor at Marlboro High School for the past 12 for math and have worked with world language. Most recently, I've added the English department. Prior to becoming a supervisor, I was a math teacher at Marlboro for 11 years. Under my supervision and with the wonderful staff and students I have the pleasure of working with, we continue to lead the Freehold Regional High School District with the best scores in math and English year after year. I grew up in this town and attended the schools myself. I know the value of a good education and strive to provide that for all of the students with whom I serve. I am the proud mother of 2 active children, and although we are a very busy family, being a member of the Howell School Board is something I choose to dedicate my time to year after year. In addition to my board responsibilities, I have also been the PTA treasurer for a total of 9 years and am very involved with my kids' sports teams, giving me a good year to the community. In my time on the board, I have made the math placement process more transparent, which you can view on the website. I was adamant about the adjusting of math standards in pre-algebra to compete with the neighboring school districts. I have been part of the finance committee, planning for the future and to save as much money as possible. To me, the most important thing a school district can do is educate the students to ensure they are competitive with nearby towns. If elected, I will continue to bring student achievement to the forefront of Howell's priorities while continuing to be educated on the financial process.
All right, next we have Frank Miletto.
Hi, good evening. My name is Frank Miletto. I'm a father of 3, one of which just graduated from Howell High School, one in preschool and one soon to be in preschool. I'm born and raised in Howell Township, graduating from Howell School Districts, from elementary school, graduating class of 2006, Howell High School. I'm currently a police officer. I've been for 17 years in Monmouth County. I currently hold the rank of Detective Sergeant. Being born and raised in Howell, I'm deeply invested within the community. Growing up here, I was a volunteer, a first responder, Howell First Aid, and also a volunteer police explorer, which helped me continue on my career as a police officer. As you'll hear moving forward, my main concern is the well-being of our children and continuing to keep Howell a great place to live and a great place for a learning environment for our children. Throughout everything, I'm a father, and that's really what this boils down to here, and that's why I'm being involved in this. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Suzanne Gabriel.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Suzanne Gabriel, and I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. I moved to Howell, New Jersey in 1987 with my family. After being inspired by the education that my children received while attending the schools in Howell, I became a special ed teacher. Following that endeavor, I became an educator of administration. I am proud to be an educator in the Howell Township School District for over 24 years. Several highlights of being an educator was one of a supervisor of ASI and RTI in the K-5 school district. I created a multi-generational program that ran for over 10 years called Bridging the Age Gap. And the students and senior citizens of our community work together for different causes. I worked in 2 schools that promoted student leadership, and I worked tirelessly to get the technology referendum passed. After retiring, I continue my love of working with children as the director of Little Pals Preschool. My experience as a parent, as an educator, as a community member, all gives me the understanding and opportunity to work and collaborate with others. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Stephen Levine.
Hi, I'm Dr. Stephen Levine, Professor Emeritus of Psychology at Georgian Court University. I have served on the Board of Education for 8 years and currently am the Vice President of the Board. I have served as President of the Board previously. I have served on Education, Finance, Policy, Professional Learning, and Operations Committees, and I have chosen to attend all meetings of the Community Interactions Committee. I have served as a consultant in education. I am a resident for the past 40 years in Howell, as opposed to some of my colleagues up here. I did not grow up in Howell. My wife and I chose to move to Howell on the basis of the education that we saw, and that belief was, in fact, came to fruition in terms of the education that our 3 children have had. I've served as a consultant to the Archdiocese of Metuchen in terms of the parochial schools. I am a believer in us working on the board for our students and for the taxpayers.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Maggie Lazor.
Good evening. My name is Maggie Laser. I am a mom of a 4th and 5th grader, a wife of a teacher, an 8th grade special education teacher, and a daughter of a 50-year volunteer firefighter who's sitting in the audience. My family, my in-laws one's a retired state trooper. My mother-in-law is a teacher. So growing up, I had the concept of service and serving your community instilled in me. About 3 years ago, my family and I decided to move to Howell because of the education system. And since moving here, we've been extremely happy with the school district, although I understand that that's not universal to everybody. So for me, it was a natural progression to want to move into service for the Board of Education. I'm an educator of 20 years. I have been a director of special services, a principal, director of preschool, and most recently, I serve as a director of curriculum in another school district. So my background and wanting to see my own children, have the best educational experience is really what is driving me to be here today. So thank you.
All right. Thank you for all those opening statements. We'll begin with the first question, which will be answered from my left to right. The question is, the role of a board member is set forth by state law. It's been said that a board member's job is to make sure the district is, quote, well run, as opposed to, quote, runs well. Simply put, the board hires a superintendent to run the district. How do you see your role as a board member? And we will begin with Maggie Laser.
So as a board member, my main goals would be for policy input, budgetary oversight, and advocacy. And when I say advocacy, I don't mean just student advocacy, because that is a big role of a board member, but also district advocacy on the state level. So using what I know to help support the district administration to advocate for additional funds, to advocate for additional resources. There's a Garden State Coalition, which is a nonprofit, nonpartisan group that works with school districts and board members to continue that advocacy. In terms of the budgetary oversight, which would be another one of my roles, I'd be working with district administrators to find ways to maximize what we have currently, so we're not so heavily reliant on local budgets.
The role of a board member is set forth by state law. It's been said that a board member's job is to make sure the district is, quote, well run, as opposed to, quote, runs well. Simply put, the board hires a superintendent to run the district. How do you see your role as a board member?
Sure.
So as a board member, I would advocate for the students and the excellent education for the district. I want to ensure to the best of my ability that the students receive an excellent education, as well as be a liaison within the community, the parents, hearing the concerns, and being fiscally responsible. I would work to have the students have a safe environment that promotes high achievement. And as a board member, I would work with the board members and the community to address the areas of concern and do that in a fiscally responsible way.
Thank you. Ms. Okerson?
So as you said, the role of the board member is to hire the superintendent and to create policy. So as a board member, it is important to be able to listen to the concerns of the community and to be able to direct them to the appropriate district personnel rather than trying to step in yourself. It is important to, as you said, ensure that the schools are running and achieving. And so you may need to approach the superintendent or central office when necessary and ask certain questions in order to make sure that that is happening while keeping the appropriate Board of Education distance. Additionally, it is important in that area to be fiscally responsible.
Thank you. Dr. Levine?
Sorry. The board is constituted in order to establish policies, and it is the responsibility of the superintendent to implement those policies. Most recently, I initiated a change in the mission statement of the board so that it is not simply to provide a thorough and efficient education, which is required under the Constitution of the state of New Jersey, but also that the policy, that the educational that our children are receiving be effective. And part of that is in terms of through the educational committee is to look at test scores and other information and ensure that the children that are being served through the Howell Board of Education, Howell Schools, is in fact receiving an effective education.
Thank you. Mr. Mileto?
Sure. So as I said before, as a parent, I see myself as an advocate for our children and the parents within Howell Township. Again, with my children starting school and being enrolled in the school program, which I too graduated from, I've been actively monitoring topics within the school. Obviously, there's some things that I favor. There's some things that I'm not too fond of. Coming from this community, I have a lot of people approach me. They too have their children going to school here. It starts up conversations. So I'm very involved with the community. I believe in being honest and transparent with decisions or actions that we make, and working with parents, the teachers, administrators, and other board members. I personally feel that the board should have parents on the board. Again, I look at everything from a parent's point of view, and I want to be the voice for the parents to protect our children.
Thank you. And Dr. Moran?
So my role as a board member would be to advocate for children, listen to the community, and modify policy when needed. My interest in becoming a Board of Education member started in 2020 when my September child began kindergarten in the middle of a pandemic. During this time, the kindergarten cutoff age was changed. I attended every single Board of Education meeting, which was held virtually. My voice was heard, luckily, by the Board of Education, who implemented an appeals process. Being a Board of Education member is about showing up. Most recently, I attended the Board of Education meeting on behalf of Frank and myself to speak on transportation issues in our district. Of the candidates who were allowed to speak during the public portion, we were the only candidates to come to the meeting and speak on behalf of parents and students who are facing challenges with busing. I will tirelessly advocate for the best interest of our children, and I will be honest and transparent in my actions while working collaboratively with administrators, teachers, other board members, and parents. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to our second question, which will be answered from right to left. What is the single greatest issue facing public education in Howell Township, And what would you do specifically as a board member to help solve or address this? We'll begin with you, Dr. Moran.
Thank you. I believe that the single greatest issue facing the district is finances, but I believe we will be talking about tax increases in the following question. So I would like to take this opportunity to talk about safe transportation again. We need to figure out a way to keep our children safe on buses. We spent over $3.4 million this year on contracted buses, and our children are still not safely getting to and from school. I propose we look deeper into our transportation issues, look at other avenues of safe transportation, and increase accessibility to safety features. I would also like to take this opportunity to note that our test scores are barely meeting proficiency. If you go onto the state board website, our scores are not the best. They are not meeting or barely meeting what we need our children to be proficient in. Our English language arts scores is 54.2%, which is just above the Met. And our math is at 43.8%. So I would just like to make that note in opposition to what Ms. Okerson stated in her opening statement about test scores. Thank you.
Next, Mr. Mileto.
Sure. So I agree with Sarah as far as the financial aspect of everything. One of the things that gets brought to my attention, once again, very often was the increase with the budget. This is the number one topic being brought to my attention, and it truly does affect every resident, not only families with children. Also, with what Sarah said, busing was a major issue. We dealt with it as parents. I dealt with it with my son. It was extremely disappointing. Again, I love this school district, but that was a major issue with me. And even just looking at social media and taking questions from parents, that was a major issue with the beginning of the school year. And I definitely think the transportation needs to be addressed, and we need to look deeper into that.
Thank you. Dr. Levine?
I took this question a little more broadly in terms of at the national level, and that is the denigration of education and teachers. And over the 8 years that I have been on the board, for 7 of those years, at the end of the year, I walked every one of our buildings, thanking our teachers, paraprofessionals, and other staff members, so that they come away with the feeling that they are valued as well as what they do is valued. The other thing that I think is facing our district, and not just our district, but again nationally, is the increasing diversity of our student population. I have been supportive of multi-language learners and the programs, and honestly, I think that there is a lot of room for improvement in terms of preparing our staff to work with those children. We've increased the diversity in terms of having universal pre-K at this point, which is something that I began pushing when I first came on the board under the previous superintendent. Additionally, I have been a director of special services and have been very active at both the state and national level in terms of special education. And I think we do a good job, but once again, I think there is room for improvement.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Okerson.
Sorry. There are many issues affecting public education today, and I continue to work to improve them in Howell. Obviously, as discussed, the biggest issue is funding. Again, we're going to talk about that next. Immediately following is student achievement and education gaps from COVID. Student test scores are dropping throughout the state, most notably in Howell. And although students are more than their test score, we cannot continue to ignore it and blame COVID. As the chair of the Education Committee, I have tirelessly communicated this message and will continue to do so. With my professional background, I feel like this is an area I continue to provide meaningful ways to improve upon curriculum and scores. At my urging, the district finally started implementing professional development to assist the teachers in managing the 80-minute block and how to best teach students and keep them engaged at this time. Finally, after years of persuasion, the district had also begun to implement test-taking strategies and programs for the state test, which, although it is in another district, will ultimately determine students' ability to graduate high school. Remember, the higher the test scores ensure higher school rankings, which increases property value. And Dr. Moran, to clarify, in my opening statement, I was referencing test scores from the place I work, which are the highest in not only Freehold Regional, but also in New Jersey, not for Howell K-8.
Ms. Gabriel?
Yes. So one of the topics of concern is looking at the new implementation of the preschool. And I know we'll talk about funding later on, but once again, Howell schools have been over time excellent, and excellent schools create excellent communities. And in order to have both of those working collectively, what we need is really good communication, the ability to discuss respectfully the topics that are brought to the table, and to ensure that the children receive the best education possible. That means that standing strong, listening to the community, and tackling the issues that arise, that ensures that the staff gets what they need, and in turn will deliver that to our little learners. So with the preschool implementation, once again, Howell is a great district, and we need to support the teachers. We need to ensure that the community understands our focus in raising students and providing them with the best education possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Laser?
So I'm going to agree with Dr. Levine on this about multi-language learners. Just a few weeks ago, I attended through NEAR, which is the National Institute of Early Childhood Education Research out of Rutgers. I attended a workshop, and what they showed us is that California has 59% of their students that are multi-language learners. Texas has 49%, and then the third state in the entire United States is New Jersey at 47%. Third, think of our size. New Jersey is this big. California and Texas are that big. So that's how many multi-language learners we currently have in our state. And I don't think that Howell necessarily is well prepared, because historically there has not been as much diversity as there is now. So from what I could tell, that the district does do SIOP training, which is sheltered instruction training. It's research-based. It's a protocol to help teachers meet the needs of all the learners in the class, particularly multi-language learners, but all learners. We have 25% of our teachers that are trained. So if we have students in the majority of our classes that are speaking dual languages or only speaking another language other than Spanish, it's really important that we get all of our teachers SIOP trained so they can support students in all the settings, especially because I suspect that our multi-language learner population is still going to increase over the next few years.
Thank you. I forgot to ask after the first question, would anybody like a rebuttal to this question? Please.
I would just like to add that as a Howell Board of Education candidate, my main focus will be on Howell students, not students in other districts. It's very important to look at what we have and our resources and what our students are doing, and not at the work of other districts. We've had lots of opportunities and lots of time, if you are a current board member, to look within. It's so important. My children are in this district. Your children are in this district. Maybe your grandchildren are in this district. It's our test scores that matter and what we're doing to help our students that matter. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Again, just to clarify, I was trying to illustrate my qualifications for this job. I have been arguing since I've been on the board to try and assist the Howell kids in order to get to the Freehold regional level and to not be at the bottom of that.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to add a 30-second rebuttal? Okay. We'll move on to the next question, which will be from my left to right. We know taxes are a question on the minds of a lot of voters. This summer, both the local and regional boards of education voted for a one-time tax increase that significantly exceeded the annual 2% state cap. The state allowed districts to raise taxes up to 9.9%. And the caveat, these were districts that lost money under S2. It wasn't for every district. This happened after both districts suffered substantial state aid cuts over the last 6 years. The Howell K district narrowly approved a 7% increase. The Freehold Regional increased taxes roughly 8.5%. What is your stance on this, and what does the term fiscally responsible mean to you? We'll begin with Ms. Laser.
Being fiscally responsible means ensuring that the district is making financial decisions based off of the strategic plan. The strategic plan was created in conjunction with stakeholders, parents, Board of Ed members, focusing on Howell's specific needs. So what I would do as a board member I would ask questions about the proposed budget and ask how does each item relate to the strategic plan, particularly those additional big purchase or line items that we'd be seeing in the budget. And what I would be able to bring to the table is the ability to ask those targeted specific questions about each of those areas, being that that's what I do professionally in my day-to-day world. I would want to maximize the current resources that we have. I said this earlier, so we don't rely so heavily on local taxes. Looking at staffing, special ed programming, alternative funding, looking at those discretionary areas as opposed to those non-discretionary areas that we can't touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gabriel.
So being fiscally responsible is looking at a lot what Maggie had shared. I totally agree on. When you have the strategic planning and you have the community and you have the input from all of the people, the parties, they have an opportunity to see what the plan is. If you don't have a plan, you don't know where you're going. And if you don't know where you're going, then that's not a way to be fiscally responsible. So looking at that, having that open dialogue, the communication, understanding where the funding is allocated, and taking that and working with your team, working with the community to understand how to best meet the needs of the community. So being fiscally responsible is taking a look, listening to the people, looking at the funding, thinking outside the box, working and seeing other ways that other monies can be brought in and used in order to meet the needs of the students and help them to learn in the best way possible.
Thank you. Ms. Okerson?
School funding is being reduced or removed in many local districts. Some very close to us have had to cut 70 or up to 100 jobs. In the past years of S2, Howell state aid has dropped more than $14 million. This past July, when we voted to increase it, was only $3 million, which amounted to about $10 a monthly increase on the average tax in Howell. It has been said that I have voted for a 9.9% tax increase. Simply not true. I voted to increase the budget by a small amount of what was removed, which resulted in a small monthly increase of $10 per the average household. Instead of voting on something considerable years from now, I voted on something which had minimal effect on taxpayers but moved the district along in the right direction rather than kick the can down the road, which would have been very irresponsible and not fiscally responsible. As a Howell resident, these decisions affect me as well. I am on your side while trying to do right by the district and the homeowners. Educational research shows that the smaller number of students in a class is more beneficial to all when it comes to student achievement. Teachers have time to ensure each student is meeting their goals. Without this money, staff could be lost, like neighboring districts, and class sizes could skyrocket, which would ultimately hurt our children. To me, $10 a month is more than worth keeping class sizes small, as we do not know what additional cuts are on the horizon. The smaller class size would assist with the student achievement, which boosts the school's ranking, which also helps property values to increase, as well as a more educated population.
Thank you. Dr. Levine?
It's the responsibility of the board to provide a thorough and efficient education that is mandated in the least burdensome manner possible for the taxpayers. The board voted to increase the property taxes by 7% this past year, but the fiscal responsibility comes in terms of the budgets that are going to be struck in the next 3 years. And it is my responsibility as a board member, as well as my colleagues on the board, to ensure that it is minimal in terms of the actual spending, and instead bank that additional cap so that in subsequent years there is no need to increase taxes still further. If I can, for example, we just opened universal pre-K at no cost, to educational cost to the taxpayers at all. The funding for that is coming out of state monies. The only thing we're responsible for as taxpayers is the transportation component, which is true for every student that we are transporting. This is a savings for parents who have youngsters in preschool of between $12,000 and $14,000 per child.
Thank you. Mr. Mileto?
Sure. So based on what I've researched, I'm against that tax increase. That increase has significantly affected families throughout Howell Township, including my own. Prior to the 9.9% one-time cap increase set forth by Governor Murphy, the Howell Township School District operated off a 2% cap. To my understanding, while operating off that 2% cap, the school district was fine fiscally and being properly navigated by the administrators. In addition, this year, S2 funding formula allowed us $1.5 million, which was a 7.4% increase from last year. What's done is done in my eyes. But moving forward, as a parent, as a citizen, I would like to ensure that that money gets allocated appropriately.
Thank you. Dr. Moran?
Thank you. I would just like to say I am against the tax increase, and I'm speaking as a parent of 2 children who are in the district. This money will affect my children directly, and I am still against it. The tax increase came as a response to S2 funding budget cuts in New Jersey, where Governor Murphy passed Bill A4161, which allowed school districts to vote on a one-time opportunity to supersede the 2% tax limit and vote on an up to 9.9% tax increase. Prior to the Board of Education voting on a 9.9 tax increase, which was supported by incumbents Ms. Okerson and Dr. Levine, there was a fiscally responsible budget set forth by administration at 3.5%. This was voted on and approved. And while the 9.9% tax increase did not happen and it was landed on 7, I would like to mention that our incumbents did support and voted yes for the 9.9. I would also like to say this is not fiscally responsible, and this is certainly not a move for the taxpayers. In addition to having 2 children in the school, my in-laws live in town on a fixed income, and this is a hardship for them as much as it is for the rest of our town. The district has navigated our budget successfully for many years, sometimes not even making an increase or making a minimal increase at 1%. And yes, the S2 funding formula has cost us much money. But this past year, the state gave us $22 million. In addition, a $1.5 million, which is a 7.4% increase from last year. We can't go back and undo it, but I will ensure that the money gets allocated appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone like a rebuttal starting from left to right?
I would. The 9.9 was what the superintendent of schools was recommending. I moved, it was clear to me that each of the members of the board had completely stated what their positions, and in order to move the item, I then moved it. And in order to respect and honor our superintendent of schools, I started at the 9.9, knowing full well that there would not be support for that 9.9. It was my intention to then go to 9, then to 8 and 7, and I knew that 6.5 would in fact have at least 5 votes We, in fact, struck it at 7, and at 7 we had the requisite number of votes.
Back in. We're going to move on to our next question. From my right to left, what skills or characteristics do you possess that make you uniquely qualified to serve on a board of education?
Thank you. First and foremost, I am a parent of 2 children in the district, a proud parent of 2 children in the district. I'm very connected to the schools, and I have a long-term vested interest in the success of the district. I am the mother that sits next to you on the sports bleachers and volunteers with you at school events. I am not an administrator, and that is a true benefit because I do not have a conflict of interest, which will allow me to put children first, put our teachers first, and put the voice of the parents first. My desire is to represent our children. Professionally, I am a doctorately prepared registered nurse with a doctorate in nursing education and a postmaster's in online teaching. I am employed as a team leader, a nurse manager, and I have strong leadership and communication skills. I am not afraid to speak up when I need to, as evidenced by my last attendance at the Board of Education meeting, and I'm equally as willing to listen to gain perspective and understanding, which many parents know. And I have spoken to many parents. I have spoken to many senior citizens, many community members. I'm here to listen to you. I'm the wife of a teacher, which gives me a unique perspective into educational topics. And I would like to just note, thank you to all of our teachers. You are the backbone of our educational system, and I hope I can represent you.
Thank you. Mr. Mileto?
Sure. So unlike some of the people that are sitting at this table, I have no experience on the Board of Education, and I'll be the first to say that. But the one thing I am is I'm a father, and this community means the world to me along with my children. The other thing that I did not say in the beginning in my opening is my experience that my job has led, which would help me on this board. Currently, I serve as the president of the FOP, Lodge 19, within Neptune Township. Being in that position, I deal directly with contractual issues and budgeting, which affects our union. Again, I'm the president of that, so at the end, we deal with all grievances and whatnot. And then being in law enforcement for 17 years, I also have extensive training, which a topic that hasn't been brought up here is school safety and school threat, which is a major issue worldwide. And I just want to put out there that Howell Township Police do an excellent job protecting our schools. But as a board member, I want to ensure any future concerns from parents get addressed on that as well and be the voice from parents, because that is an issue that we haven't spoken about yet, and it does come up quite often.
All right, thank you. And just for clarity, FOP, you mean the Fraternal Order of Police, for people that may not know what that acronym is. All right, thank you. Dr. Levine?
Okay. In addition to serving 8 years on the Howell Board of Education, at the local level, I coached soccer in terms of Pinelanders and was pack master of Cub Scout Pack 515. I have been a consultant to the New Jersey and United States Departments of Education, as well as group special education for the Ministry of Education for New Zealand. I have developed programs in terms of school psychology and applied behavior analysis at Georgian Court University, where I served for 37 years. I'm also previously was the executive officer of the Division of School Psychology for the American Psychological Association and a founding director of the National Alliance for Pupil Service Organizations. Within the district, I have served on the following committees: education, finance, operations, and professional learning committee. I also served on the education, the advisory council for early childhood education, which sponsored the development of our universal preschool program.
All right, thank you. Ms. Okerson?
I have a math degree and a master's in education, and as mentioned before, have worked for Freehill Regional for over 20 years. I am in my 12th year of supervising one of the most competitive high schools' math and English departments in New Jersey. I have been on the teacher negotiations team multiple times, and I'm the president of the Supervisors Association, in addition to negotiating multiple supervisors' contracts. Again, as Mr. Mileto said, that can be very helpful on the other side of it. I have been the PTA treasurer for 9 years, and I didn't get to mention in my opening, but I've also been an advocate for my son who has special needs. I understand the fight for kids who need access and need us the most. These titles show that I can get right to work and get the job done. It also shows my diversity of community groups and my willingness to listen. Finally, I am in a unique situation where I know the curricular requirements of where our students continue their education more than most, in addition to the fact that I am clear on the financing math, which can be confusing to others at times.
Thank you, Ms. Gabriel.
So some of the qualifications that I can bring to the table is that I'm a retired Howell teacher and Howell administrator. My children went through the system. I'm a parent. I am a community member. Somebody paved the way for my children to get an excellent education. I would like to do that and continue to work so that the children, I don't have a school-age child in the district right now, but I am going to work with everybody to ensure that the education of the students that live here within Howell have that opportunity the same as my children. It's a wonderful, wonderful district. It's a wonderful district because the teachers work really, really hard, and the administrators work really hard to provide them what they need in turn to meet the needs of the students. I believe in educating students not only academically, but socially and emotionally. And I bring that to the table. I bring that scope of being a parent, being a community member, being a former educator, well, an educator, but a former Howell Township educator. And I can look at that and respectfully have dialogue with the members of the community. Thank you.
Slazer?
So, as I mentioned earlier, in my professional life, I work with curriculum currently. I've disaggregated data, specifically how to drive our instructional focus. I've sat at the negotiation table on both sides as for the teachers and also as an administrator. I've worked on scheduling, personnel, special services, multi-language learners, parent workshops. But I think what's most notable and applicable to the situation that Howell is in right now is as the director of preschool, myself and my superintendent were the key facilitators for bringing in PEA funding in my own district 4 years ago. I grew the program from infancy, from a small tuition-based program to one that's across 6 sites with 32 classrooms and over 500 students. In fact, we welcomed the Howell Central Office administrators into my building several years ago to come learn how we had implemented our programming and how we had used the funds. So I have a lot to offer and to help, to provide input to what goes on in our school districts.
All right, thank you. Would anyone like a rebuttal to that? Starting from right to left. We'll move on to the next question. This is going to be from left to right. So, Ms. Laser, this is coming to you. What is your stance on parental rights within public education, and how do you plan to advocate for parents and children?
So, this is one of those hot topics. I'm assuming we're talking about student or parents' rights as they apply the transgender laws and rules. I could be wrong, but if you had, okay.
And you answered how you like.
I'm going to go that route. If you had asked me 10 years ago, I probably would have said, whatever the state tells us, those are the rules. We're looking out for students. Parents don't have rights. So-and-so. I have my own children now. My views have very much changed. And while student student voice is definitely important, and it's important that we protect our students. Parents at the same time do have rights to know what's happening to their children in school. So that there wouldn't be a need to have these laws if there wasn't a concern for certain students' safety. That said, parents need to be informed about what is going on in school with their children. So for me personally, I think high school is a different beast, but I think for elementary and middle school, parents and the school district need to work together and collectively, and that involves the sharing of information.
Thank you. Ms. Gabriel?
Sure. So parental rights are a very important aspect. We bring children into this world, and we send them off to school to be safe and to receive an education in an environment where they can flourish. So in order for that to happen, I truly believe in that open communication and understanding of what parent concerns may have, whether it is special education, a classroom, a social issue with bullying, something with sexual orientation. Parents have the right to be heard, and it's up to the school district to listen and provide an opportunity for all parties to come together in some sort of a mutual agreement. You can agree to disagree, but everything is keeping the best interest of the child in focus. So when we're looking at that, if we keep the best interest of the children in focus, then that is what I will work with this board to accomplish.
So this is a very controversial topic, and truthfully can depend on many issues. My colleagues to the right have brought up the transgender, but there's also the entry age, in addition to waiving out of health at any particular point. So I truly think it is dependent on the issue at hand. I believe parents know their kids best and should be a partner with the school district, and decisions should be made together to benefit each child in each individual situation. I believe in the power of partnership between the school and home, and know the benefits that brings to all students of all ages.
Dr. Levine?
Parents have the right to make decisions concerning their child. Over the years that I have been on the board, my votes have, in fact, been reflective of maintaining the right of parents to make those decisions, again, for their child. And the model that I would use and have been using for the last 45 years has to do with the development of IEPs, where parents and the district come together to make decisions about the education of the child in terms of what is best for that child. And I would see that as being the model to be used in all decision-making when it comes to the child. I will reiterate, parents have the right to make decisions about their child. Please notice the emphasis on their. They don't have the right to make decisions about the children of other parents.
Thank you. Mr. Milletto?
Sure. I believe parental rights are huge, and I'm a big believer in empowering parents to be actively involved in our children's and their children's education. I also feel that school curriculum should reflect the many needs of what our student population is. I advocate for the Howell opt-out policy, which coincides with the state regulations and allows parents to have children opt out of portions of curriculum, much like health curriculum. And as all of us know, curriculum is state mandated, but I will support policies like the opt-out policy that give parents a choice. Ms. Gabriel made a good point with open communication with parents and to always have the best interest of our children in mind.
Thank you. Dr. Moran?
Thank you. So as I've stated all along, I am a parent. It's the platform that I am running on. And I know as a mother, I want to make choices for my children in the district, and I believe that parents should make choices for their children in the district. I believe that parents should be empowered to be actively involved in their children's education, and I believe that our curriculum should reflect the diverse needs of our student population. I would like to take a moment to share that I do have a neurodiverse child who is also young for his grade level, being born in September. It took me 2 years to obtain a 504 in this district. I would like to change that. It was very challenging. I believe we can leverage our wonderful preschool program because I believe that early intervention is key to the success of our children. Having our preschool program would allow us to intervene earlier and quicker for our children. I also advocate for Howell's opt-out policy, which aligns with the state regulations and allows parents to opt out of portions of curriculum like our health curriculum. Curriculum, while state mandated, it cannot be changed, but we can create policies as the Board of Education. And I support policies that support parental choice and support the best interests of our children. Most recently, I have talked to parents, and I believe advocating at the state level as in also advocating at our local level is just as important. At the state level, thank you.
Did you want to finish your sentence?
Sure, I'll finish my sentence.
You can finish
I
your
just want to make a statement of advocacy at the state level that our legislation is looking at creating a task force for special education children and providing safe transportation for our special education children. It would be a task force created by many members that have jurisdiction in this: health, nurses, teachers, parents. And I think it's really important, and I think it's important to look at what's going on at the state level because it does affect what we do here at our local level. So if you have a moment, please take a look at this. I feel very strongly about this task force, and I do believe it should come to fruition.
Right, thank you. Would anyone like a rebuttal to that, starting left to right? Ms. Okerson. Either? Okay.
I feel the 504 thing. I just wondered how, as a board member, you would be able to change that process because I'm very interested.
I believe that there are policies that you can put in place to help support that on a level. What I'm saying is that I'm an advocate for parents' rights. What I'm also saying is that I don't have conflict of interest as a parent. There's administrators on the board who work at competing preschools, and my interest is in the preschool that we have here in town. It's my sole interest, what we are doing for the Howell Public School District. I want the best for our kids. Thank you.
This brings us to our last question for the evening, which will be answered from my right to left, starting with Dr. Moran. Being a board member means you will be a public servant, which is a time commitment. Besides attending board meetings, members have a responsibility to serve on committees, attend various trainings and workshops, and also attend some functions throughout the year. How do you see yourself committing the time needed to be an effective public servant? Dr. Moran.
So I'm very passionate about giving our children the best education possible. And when you're passionate about something, you make time for it. I highly value education, which is evident in the fact that I pursued a doctorate degree in nursing education. I balanced obtaining my doctorate degree while being a mother, a wife, a T-ball commissioner, a Sunday school teacher, and working a full-time job. The skills I learned while pursuing my education and the time management skills I learned while mastering all of these skills have given me excellent communication, advocacy skills, and time management skills that I would utilize if I was elected to the Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mileto?
Sure. This is the easy one. So I'm a parent, number one, right? And we make anything possible. We do whatever we can to help our children. Time is not necessarily an issue with that. My life revolves around my children, probably much like people that are sitting up here. And there's no such thing as committing enough time to ensure our children continue on a positive path with their education. I volunteer as well with the kids, with Little League, North Howell Little League. My kids are my life, and that's really what it boils down to. And again, that's why I'm here today. I can't stress that enough. I know people maybe get sick of hearing that, but that's what drove me to do this today is my children. And they mean the world to me, and there'll never be an issue with time when it comes to my kids.
All right, thank you. Dr. Levine?
I'm sorry.
Cool. In 2020, I retired from Georgian Court University as a result of COVID. The only time commitments that I have currently are my family. I have, over the entire time that I have served on the board, as well as a citizen member of other committees, I have always maintained a visibility in terms of always meeting my commitments to the board, to the administration, to the children, especially to the teachers and staff. I see nothing that would, at this point, would interfere with my ability to continue to meet all commitments required and necessary. When I say required and necessary as I define it, it may not be required, but I would find it as a requirement.
Thank you, Ms. Okerson.
Being a board member is what you make of it. As a board member, you can choose to attend the committee meetings in which you're assigned, in addition to the full board meetings, or you can attend every committee meeting and be well-versed in what's going on in the Board of Education. I have 2 busy kids and my job adds to it, but I have been able to prioritize being a board member because it is important to me. I have missed 1 board meeting in 7 years, which is pretty consistent as far as attendance goes, and I will continue to make being a board member a priority.
Thank you. Ms. Gabriel?
Sure. Time commitment. My time commitment has been continuous, and the focus has been on continuing to support the wonderful schools that we have. If we have wonderful schools, then that means that our kids are looked after, our kids are given places to grow, to learn. They're taught by excellent people who care about children and want to provide the best opportunity for them. I'm a life coach. I'm a director of preschool, Little Pals Preschool. I'm a retired teacher, a mom, a grandma, a daughter. And I say all of that because I balance that with my desire to continue to support and work hard to make sure that our school systems maintain their integrity. And I will work to continue to have that open dialogue, come to resolutions, and really work with the community to ensure that our children get the best that they require and that they deserve, because kids matter. Kids matter. And if we have great schools, we have a great community. I'm retired, but that doesn't mean that I don't care about the kids. I care about the kids. My life has always been dedicated to the ensuring that children receive the best quality education possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Laser?
So I haven't slept in about 10 years. So moving forward, I think I can just continue that trend. My work schedule aligns with the Howell School District. Obviously, we're in education as well. You'll find me 4 to 5 nights a week at Soldier Memorial, where my kids both play travel soccer. So what that also means is I have 2 full teams willing to help take them to and from practice. I have my awesome parents that are here in Howell to help. So really, even though I don't sleep and I'm constantly busy, I have the support systems in place to support me in my next endeavor.
Well, thank you, everybody. That brings us to our closing statements. And did anyone want a rebuttal to? I wouldn't think someone wants to rebut what time commitment you'll make for being a board member. But I heard a lot of people talk about families, and having been a former board member myself, there were times that I had to sacrifice not spending time with my family to fulfill my commitment as a board member. For our closing statements, we had a random drawing, and this is the order. It's going to be Mrs. Gabriel, Mrs. Laser, Dr. Moran, Mrs. Okerson, Dr. Levine, and then Mr. Mileto. So, Mrs. Gabriel, if you'd like to begin with your 60-second closing statement.
Sure. I'd like to thank you for holding this forum so that people have an opportunity to hear what each of us has to say. And it's very hard to make everything very concise in this short amount of time. So I invite you to look and keep researching and understand that up here we bring to the table a love of children. I am here to work with children. I have always wanted that because I want every child to feel valued. I want them to understand that they have the right for a wonderful education. And in turn, that goes to work with the community and understand that working together, we can provide the teachers with what they need to serve our children. And it's very, very important to understand that coming from a diverse background, as I have as an educator, as a parent, as a resident here in the community, a retired person of this school system, I could work and go to Florida. I'm not. I'm staying here because I truly believe in this community, and I will fight hard for everybody in a respectful way. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't go to Florida tomorrow. Just Ms. Laser.
I want to thank Howell first for doing this. This is a first experience for me. It was very nerve-wracking, but I do think it's very important to have everybody up here. I also, hope that taxpayers and parents and community members continue to research all the candidates. And I also want to say that although part of my reason for wanting to be on the Board of Education is selfish, it is because I want my own children to have the best education. And I feel that Howell School District is on the right track. There are things that we can work on, but I think if you have the right people on the Board of Education, that can happen. So thank you for doing this.
You're welcome. Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Moran.
At the heart of our discussion tonight is the future of our children and the well-being of our community. As we move forward, it is critical that we prioritize a quality education that equips every student with the tools they need to succeed, no matter their background or circumstances. My commitment is to bring transparency, collaboration, and innovative thinking to our school system, ensuring that every decision we make reflects the best interest of our students, teachers, and families. From the start of announcing my candidacy for Board of Education, I have been one of the most accessible and transparent candidates. I have answered your questions, reached out to you individually, listened intently to you, and showed up for you. I will continue to do this. It takes a village to raise a child, and I sincerely want to be a part of your village. Thank you so much for your time and consideration. I hope to see you all at the polls on November 5th. And I would just like to add, my son is playing soccer tonight. Go Howell Outlaws. My heart is with you tonight, just as much as it is with our community and our school district. And happy birthday, Gio.
Thank you. Ms. Okerson.
I've been a lifelong resident of Howell, and the quality of our schools is the primary reason I chose to raise my children here. My educational involvement spans 22 years, and as an active family in our community, participating in church, sports, and school organizations, I have a deep understanding of Howell's needs. My knowledge of education, coupled with my dedication and work ethic, make me an ideal candidate for the Howell Board of Education. I will advocate for the kids as much as I can, although it is worth acknowledging that the Board of Education does have limited influence. I request your continued support as I strive to serve our community. Thank you again, Mr. Parisi and Hal First. This really was very much appreciated.
You're welcome. Dr. Levine.
The former president of Georgian Court will be surprised in terms of what I'm about to say, and that is she was always quoting the foundress of the Religious Sisters of Mercy, good today, better tomorrow. And I think that's a motto that we need to have. I think that the system is good in terms of the education that our children are receiving, but it can certainly be improved. I would like to see that we in Howell, that our children, when they get to high school, exceed all of the other sending districts in terms of their success rate.
Thank you. And last, Mr. Mileto.
Sure. I just want to say thank you for hosting this event. Our children are the future. In today's ever-changing world, we need to assure a safe and positive environment for their education. My goal is, and will forever be, to protect our children and be the voice of all parents. Howell's a great town and a great school district. I feel safe when I send my kids off to school, and I want to be there and be on the board to assure their safety and positive education continues. I want what's best for my child, our children, and our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank all the... Dr. Levine, you want to say something?
Although it's not an objection, I just would like to thank my fellow candidates up here in terms of their interest in the children. And I hope that irrespective of the results of the election, that all of us remain involved in terms of improving the educational system of this district.
Well, that was a very positive thing to say, and I appreciate that. I do want to thank all of you for being here tonight and participating in the conversation with the candidates. In a moment, we'll give everyone a round of applause, but for the viewers at home that are live streaming, they may be wondering, what about the regional? So what we're going to do is after we're done this, we're going to take a short little break. We're going to get everything set up for the regional candidates. I do hope that the local candidates stick around to listen to the regional candidates as they've been here listening to you. And we'll cut the live stream and come back in, I'd say, about 5 minutes. So I'd like to give the candidates here tonight a round of applause and thank you for being here. We're going to begin the second portion of conversation with the candidates. This portion with the 3 candidates that are running for the Freehold Regional Board of Education. I will say that there should be 4 candidates here tonight. However, sadly, Mr. Peter Bruno's sister passed away. He notified me yesterday morning, and I did reach out to him, and he did tell me that I could make that announcement here today with everybody, that he regrets not being able to be here, but he's grieving with his family, as we can all understand, and we send our condolences to Mr. Bruno at this time. So, unlike the local candidates where you had 7 individuals going for 3 3-year terms, this is a little bit of a different election in that we have Mr. Jarman and Ms. Farkas that are running for an unexpired 1-year term, and we have Ms. Gabriella Gugliotta Combs, who's running for a 3-year term. So they are all running for a seat on the Freehold Regional Board of Education. One of the seats is for a 3-year term, and the other seat is for a 1-year unexpired term. I have Mr. Michael Jarman on my left. In the middle, I have Ms. Joan Butcher-Farkas, and on the right, I have Gabriella Gugliotta Combs. So I know that you guys were in attendance when I made the announcements earlier going over some of the ground rules. Does anybody need me to restate what the ground rules are, or is everyone familiar with that?
I'm good.
Everyone's good? Okay, good. Then we will begin with our opening statements. And since it's only 3 of you, I'm just going to go from left to right. Mr. Jarman, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark and Howell first, and my fellow candidates, Gabriella and Joan, for welcoming us this evening to this very important event, an opportunity to be able to share our interest in these positions within the Freehold Regional Board of Education. Just brief introduction to myself and who I am. My name is Mike Jarman. I am a lifelong resident of Monmouth County, and I've lived in Howell Township for 17 years in the Ramtown section of Howell. And when my wife and I decided to start and raise a family, we were looking at communities and looking at school systems and districts within the Central Jersey and the Monmouth area, and heard great things about the Freehold Regional School District, specifically Howell Township, and the bordering schools. And I will say, with great enthusiasm, 17 years later, I've had the experience of having 2 children within the regional school district. My son Benjamin graduated last year from the humanities program, one of the magnet programs within Howell High School. He's currently a freshman at Villanova University in Pennsylvania. My daughter, Lauren, is a junior, and she's in the magnet program at Colts Neck High School in the Law and Public Servant program there. In addition to that, I have 2 younger children in the grade school system. I have a 3rd grader and a 5th grader. So to say that I'm involved and very interested in serving this community would be an understatement. When I take a look at kind of my background and what I've done throughout my career, so
Yes, I'm nine. Oh,
okay, great. So I have a 20 years history of in the healthcare sector with leading global pharmaceutical and diagnostic organizations within New Jersey that have prepared me very well for this role. I'm looking forward to be able to share my experiences as well as my enthusiasm for the role this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bishop Farkas?
Hi, my name is Joan Butcher-Farkas, and I am also running for Freehold Regional High School District for the 1-year unexpired term. I have lived in Howell for over 20 years. I had the privilege of having 3 children graduate through this district, and they have gone on to the educational experiences of their choice. They are working in the fields of their choice. And I feel so blessed to have had this opportunity and so excited at the quality of the education that my kids received that I feel that is my responsibility as a community member to give back to a district that has given my family so much. I was raised to believe that that's what community members do. We serve, we help each other, we bring each other along, and we fulfill roles when they're needed. When I saw that there was an incumbent that needed to step down from the Board of Education that would have left that seat empty at the same time that I was about to officially become an empty nester, it just seemed like kismet, and that was the time and that was the calling for me to come forward and do this. I know we'll have an opportunity to talk about our experiences and our credentials, and I'm going to be happy to share all of that with you later, but I figured I would just open up with letting you know my why. Why am I here? Why did I run? And why now? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Gugliotta-Combs?
Okay. Sorry. This is like nerve-wracking. First time. It's like being back in college and giving a presentation all over again. So, I'm a native New Yorker. I'm a mother of 2. I moved out here because of my children. Sorry, Joan. I've been out here for 19 years, and I want to make a difference. I've seen my children are in K-5. And my daughter is in high school. She's on the a cappella group. I'm very passionate. She's doing multiple things. She's on, like I said before, the a cappella group. She is in field hockey. She's in, sorry, I am just very nervous, so forgive me. I'm a mom like everybody else. And I want to make a difference. I want to bring the wow back to the moments for our kids. I want our kids to come home and share their days with us, like mine do. They tell us as we sit at the table, how was your day? How are you feeling? How's everything? What did we do at school today? And I love those moments. Those are the moments that I wait for, and then I wait to hear that they're having a great time. But I have a frustration as a working mom, as a wife, as a full-time everything, and other parents could relate to me. I'm done?
You can thank you. Well,
I have a frustration that we need to bring back after-school busing. We need to bring back programs that we're doing a disservice to our children. They should be able to go to after-school programs and be able to come home in security and be safe coming home for our kids, that they are able to be with their peers and not just come and be on their phones and spend their times on TikTok and whatever else can be not a great influence on them. Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll have other questions where you can get into that a little bit more. So let's get into our first question. The role of a board member is set forth by state law. It's been said that a board member's job is to make sure the district is, quote, well run, as opposed to, quote, runs well? Simply put, the board hires a superintendent to run the district. How do you see your role as a board member? And we'll start from my right to left. We'll alternate going back and forth, so this way. Miss Gabriella Gugletta Holmes.
Okay. Well, I want to make sure that our students get equally educated in our system. I want them to grow up in a safe environment. That's what school is there for. They're there to learn. They're there to broaden their horizons. I don't want outside influences, like meaning cyberbullying or bullying in school. You should be there. You should be able to enjoy yourself. You should be able to learn without any stress, knowing the fact that you're trying to figure out how to get home, how to maneuver your day, or trying to avoid anyone or anything. You just want to be able to go to school and have a good day.
Thank you. Ms. Butcher-Farkas?
Well, you pretty much defined the role of a school board member. Obviously, when there is the need for a superintendent, they hire the superintendent. They oversee the budget and the spending. They help to implement and create policy. They actually approve all the hiring, if you look in the minutes. At the end of the day, where I see my role is because of my background. I have a master's and a bachelor's degree in social work. I work in teams and I work in the community with listening to and advocating for folks to get the needs that they need. So as a school board member, I see myself as being a liaison specifically with the Howell community onto a regional district to best represent the needs of the students, the parents, the faculty, the paraprofessionals, the superintendents, my fellow board members, to do everything that we can to make sure that the school is running within the parameters that are established by state and federal law.
Thank you. Mr. Jarman?
Yeah, I think in terms of responsibility, and as you said, Mark,
No.
Mike?
His mic's not on. Can you give him a little?
His mic is on. You guys see. They're a lot closer to it.
How's that?
That's better.
That's better?
Yeah, I just want to make sure everyone can hear and the cameras are picking up. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that. Like you said, Mark, responsibility is that the school is well run. And when I look at my experience from a educational perspective, my own education and as well as professional experience, it starts with communication. I think so often when we look at challenges within the school system, we look at the teachers or we look at the students and challenges. But truly, the role of the board is to be able to educate and communicate across members of the entire community, from administration to taxpayers that we had talked about, to families with children, families without children, to make these communities as strong as they can be. Also, an area of focus on responsibility for the board, and I look back on my own education. I have a Jesuit education, and the hallmark of that is really focusing on the whole person. So I know we'll talk through curriculum and academics. Those are very important as we're preparing future leaders and our children to go out in the workforce. But there's so much beyond that, a life of service, a life of giving back to community. One of the things that really has impressed me about Howell in particular, but the entire system, you always talk about we are Howell. And not only are these kids getting a tremendous education, but we're sending them into the workforce and we're sending them to schools where they can really drive a positive impact on society. And to me, it starts with what we do internally to set them up for success.
Thank you. Would anyone like a rebuttal to that? Seeing none, we'll move on. What is the single greatest issue facing public education in the Freehold Regional High School District, and what would you do specifically as a board member to help solve or address this? To you, Mike, on the left.
There's plenty of issues that we can talk about that are impacting the system. We've talked about the referendum. I'm sure we'll address from a budgetary standpoint. Those are very important. I think one thing that we really need to ensure that we're focusing on is the mental health of our teachers, our administrators, as well as our students. I think it's been well documented that teacher burnout is a major challenge within systems today. You have kids in different systems. As I had mentioned, two of my kids are very fortunate to take part in the magnet program within Freehold Regional. But there's multiple programs that offer various both educational opportunities as well as technical opportunities for students, oftentimes at 15 and 16 years old, that are lacking direction and lacking focus. We need to create an environment from a student perspective as well as an education perspective where we're driving confidence, where people feel that they really have value and can bring value into the community. And there's a number of things that we can do within each of these communities through various core curriculum programs, working programs, the other resources that we tap into. If we can solve those issues and create this, continue to create an environment where people want to be and want to thrive and be successful, I'm confident the other issues will take care of themselves.
Thank you. Joan?
So the number one issue, I think everyone is going to say it here and has said it through the K through 8, is funding. And then we get our own question on that. But when I was thinking on this and really like exploring, looking just at national trends too, we talk about the lack of student progress and the reduction in test scores due to COVID. There's not a lot of talk about the mental health aspect of kids having, all of us, the collective trauma of us as a society, having been locked down for about 2 years. There are aspects of socialization that some of our kids are still fighting to get back. And that's on top of the trauma of school shootings, the trauma of school shooter drills, the level of anxiety in our youth and adolescents is off the charts, probably the highest it's ever been in history. I think that what we need to do is take advantage of funding that's going to be coming down on both a federal and a state level to address the mental health needs of students in our school districts. And as a board member and as someone who has worked with parents and children in crisis in Central State Emergency Room, I absolutely want to make that part of my contribution to the board, is to making sure that we finally get around to addressing our kids' mental health in a serious and meaningful way.
Thank you. Ms. Gabriella?
I do agree with, I do agree with with Joan, and I do agree with Michael. Mental health is a very big issue, and this is the reason why I do want to bring back after school busing. I understand budgeting is a very big thing for us. As a mother, I budget wisely because we all are on a tight budget because of inflation. We already saw our taxes go up. We already saw what the Board of Ed has put on us. I understand some people it hurts us, some people it doesn't hurt us. The reason why I like the fact that we bring back after school busing, because it gives us a reason for our kids to be not home, again, isolated. Again, all there is just their phones. It gives them a reason to able to be clubs, be able to come out of their shells, being able to speak to other students and have a good time. Mental health is very big right now. And a lot of kids are there's too many anxieties with them. And I really want that to be brought back after school busing, that there is a way for them to cope and have things being with other people. Wow, I am terribly sorry. I'm just repeating myself. I see. And then also, I want to bring to an issue as we need to prioritize all these things as well. As a mother, I want to keep saying that there's a will and a way for everything, and we are able to do this. We just have to really prioritize and make sure what is first and what needs to be handled first. And mental issue is a very big thing.
All right, thank you. Next question. Any rebuttal to that? No. I think they had a little bit of a agreement amongst each other that there wasn't going to be much rebuttals for this form, but I will ask out of respect in case someone does decide that they want to add something. We know taxes are a question on the minds of a lot of voters. This summer, both the local and regional boards of education voted for a one-time tax increase that significantly exceeded the annual 2% state cap. The state allowed districts to raise taxes up to 9.9% for those districts that had lost funding under S2. Both of our districts had lost substantial state aid over the last 6 years. The Howell CADE approved a 7% tax increase, and the Freehold Regional approved an 8.6% tax increase. What is your stance on this, and what does the term fiscally responsible mean to you? I believe we started with Michael first. So
My turn.
Go ahead.
Okay. As I was saying before, we've noticed that our taxes have gone up. We've noticed that things have tremendously gone up, inflation everywhere we could turn. And to a lot of ways, it has hurt us. And some of us have been budgeting. As I tell my kids all the time, there's a want and a need for everything. There's a prioritize. Things mean more, and then you go down the line. As a board member, I want to work with everyone. I want to work with my board members. I want to work with the professionals. I want to get down to the root of everything and maybe be able to allocate our funds wisely. As a mother, we always try to balance that dollar. We get more bang for our buck because that's how we work as mothers. We try to make sure that every dollar is used correctly. And that's what I would like to do for our students, because it really, as a parent, you want so much more for them. Thank you.
Joan?
So this is the $1 million question, right? With hindsight being 2020, and if I want your vote, I'm going to tell you, no, I would vote against that tax increase. If I win this race, I'm going to have to serve with the people who voted for it. And I have to assume good intentions and believe that with the information they were given, they thought they were making the right decision. So I want to tackle the second part of the question, which is how do I define fiscal responsibility? And it's funny you should ask me that, because for over a decade, I taught nonprofit financial management at the community college level, and I am a nonprofit financial professional in my daily life. So I define fiscal responsibility as understanding how to forecast your expenses, understanding how to spend your state contract funds as much as you have to in order to make sure they don't come back and say, hey, you left $10,000 there, we're going to fund you for less. I've developed the curriculum around maintaining nonprofit budgets and finances, and I've taught it for over a decade. So my definition of fiscal responsibility would be myself.
Thank you. Michael?
Yeah, so the first part in terms of fiscal responsibility, and it's a big question, and similar to Joan, I have a 20-year experience in managing a budget and operations roles within the clinical diagnostics and pharmaceuticals. So I've managed a $70 million annual budget within 2%. And I recognize that there's a lot of complexities as it relates to, and challenges specifically from a community perspective with the tax increase that we saw last year. I think, one of the things that is important, and we had talked about it earlier, when it comes to these types of increases or impact on a community, because this truly goes beyond just the school system. It's an understanding of alignment with how those taxes are being spent relative to the strategic plan. And I know within the Freehold Regional system, it's the Compass 3.0, which is the current plan. So there's really 4 key areas of focus: school security, obviously first and foremost, creating a modern learning environment with additional STEM resources, engineering, science, athletic fields. There's been significant upgrades. I know many of the tennis fields, track, other areas that can be utilized from a community perspective, and then the infrastructure. There were some roads within the Freehold Regional District that certainly, were in need of upgrades and updates. These are all things that increase value to the overall community. From a school board perspective, it's very important that we communicate that out. So when there are these difficult increases that impact all of us within the community, it's important that there's communication. Also, the second piece with that, when we are spending money or we are looking at infrastructure or science engineering, it's important to look at various resources and look at various areas where to spend. Fiscal responsibility to me is making the right decision and using our resources appropriately.
Thank you. Question 4. What skills or characteristics do you possess that make you uniquely qualified to serve on a board of education? Michael, start with you.
I think I look at, I had mentioned earlier, I look at my own educational experience. I went through, a graduate degree. I have a master's of business in healthcare administration, and I've worked in that field extensively. I've worked for large organizations. Currently, I'm a senior commercial director with a global pharmaceutical company based out of Newark, and I've done that role very successfully. So I understand how to manage the day-to-day from a budget perspective, from employee development, for career development, all these areas that I think are so important to kind of have that skill set to be able to make decisions and to be able to adjust and adapt to changes within the market. I always look at my own educational experience. I talked about it at the onset as well. Performance and setting a standard and improving test scores, putting individual education plans or individual plans in place for that particular student. Each student, I believe, deserves the right to have an individual educational plan, because there's going to be some kids that are going to want to be doctors and lawyers or police officers. There's going to be others that want to focus on trades. The best things that we can do for our kids is to give them an outline and an avenue where they feel like they're providing value to the society, and we can set a course for them to be successful. In addition to that, I've worked with a number of employees in various functions. I understand burnout, employee burnout, challenges that teachers are experiencing, long hours, and the impact that has. So making them feel like they're a valued part of the community and the region is imperative. And these are areas that I've done professionally that I believe will translate very well to helping the overall school region.
Thank you. Joe?
So my skills and qualifications, I already alluded to my educational background. I have both a bachelor's and a master's degree in social work. My specialization was children and families, which means that I'm not only aware of all the developmental stages of the youth that are in the high school district, I also am aware of the family dynamics and the impact on the family of those various stages. I've also parented teenagers, so I know darn well what that feels like. Additionally, in my profession, I have been a crisis counselor in Central State's emergency room, predominantly, again, working with youth. I have been an educator at the community college level where I taught within the social services program. I taught policy development and implementation. I taught nonprofit finance. And, again, these are two key areas in the Board of Education covers. I also have a successful consulting business where I not only operate as a consultant to help individuals apply for grants and alternative funding streams, which is something that could benefit the Board of Education. I also help them with grant management, which is helping with the reporting and making sure you're following the rules of your regulators and your funders, and they receive funds all the way from municipalities all the way up to the federal government. My primary customers under that have been the YWCA and the Boys and Girls Club of America throughout the United States, and they are after-school programs for high school-age youth that I am helping them to find the funding for and to then manage the programs for. I think all of that brings my unique sensibilities and my unique professional and educational experience, and I would love to be able to use that to the benefit of the Freehold Regional High School District.
Thank you. Ms. Gabriella?
I'm a graduate of the public school system. I'm a graduate of Pace University. I'm an author. I worked in a law office. I work full-time. I hold many hats as a wife and a mom. Oof. Sorry, I'm not great at public speaking. I'm a full-time mom of 2 kids, and from K-5 and another in the Freehold Regional High School. We all know that what it is to have a high school student that we all know, and a little one. I might not be an attorney, I might not be a doctor, but however, I come to this forum to bring a different perspective to this board and think outside the box. I always do. I think I give a uniqueness. I'm very good in small places, but I'm very nervous right now. But I do think out of the box. And I'm very sorry.
We can move on.
Forgive me.
So the next, no rebuttals, I presume. The next question is, one of the many issues facing the regional is aging infrastructure and other costs. For example, Freehold Borough High School is 100 years old, and 4 of the other 5 high schools in the district opened between 1964 and 1971. In recent years, there's been mixed reaction to mid-year publicly voted on referendum questions to address these needs. The 2019 referendum failed before an amended referendum narrowly passed the following year, both with poor turnouts from voters. Tell us about your stance on both infrastructure and costs and your ideas for addressing this during your term. Mike, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Yes, I know that's been a topic for discussion and certainly has come up. When you look at infrastructure of the schools and the current state, as you had mentioned, there's a number of the schools that need updates, whether it's be roof or different areas within the school themselves. These are necessary for us to create a safe and a good learning environment, I believe, in many respects, for our students and for our teachers alike. A lot of this really comes back to your previous question about fiscal responsibility. What we need to do when funds are being allocated is we need to take a look at additional resources and do our due diligence in terms of working with outside contractors that are going to provide the best value and really the best services for our community. These are the types of areas where when these upgrades need to happen, and they are necessary, that we have a team internally that really a value committee, if you will, that really looks at how we're going to spend money in these key areas. A lot of it gets back to not just within the 4 walls of the school, but also the value of the community itself. So that's something that, from a professional perspective, I've done extensively. I've worked on multiple supply chain and value committees when it comes to laboratory infrastructure, and that's something I'm very confident in. It's important. Again, I think when it comes to these issues, it's very important. Not only do we have an internal team, but then we also report out to the community in terms of how those monies are being spent. Because there's nothing worse as a taxpayer as seeing a significant increase in infrastructure, but I don't know where that money's going and how it values the overall community.
Thank you. Joe?
I like that you brought up Freehold Borough High School, because that was the first thing that popped in my head when you said infrastructure. I drive past it and it was like, my God, I could have been a student there when it was first opened. Actually, my grandparents could have been. Yeah, Howell, I probably could have been a student there when it first opened. I'm not that old. One of the things that I have done, I didn't mention my day job much other than I oversee budgets and grants. I am the director of a statewide affordable housing program, and one of the things that we have to do is maintain older homes and community buildings. And I have experience with developing the maintenance, preventative maintenance plans, coming up with capital improvement plans, budgeting for replacement reserve. And I would like to see, as community members, we don't really see the full line item budget anymore. I would really like to see what is being budgeted in those areas to try and be able to help either be proactive or to maintain those buildings without going back to the referendum, which constantly gets voted down. The other piece is using my grant writing expertise. We do research various funding, and I think that would be something that I think we need to look at. What are some creative alternatives, some creative funding streams out there that we can use to look at things like resurfacing Colts Neck Track? I think it took a decade for that to be done, and we have not just statewide athletes there. We have nationally significant athletes running on a track that's broken. I think we need to look at more creative ways because the taxpayer can't keep footing the bill. They're just not willing to vote to do that. I'm hoping with communication we can convince them, but that's just not what I've seen.
Thank you. Ms. Gabriella?
Well, as everyone has said, and right behind them, it's infrastructure. But as well as, I might not have all the credentials as everyone here has, but as a wife and as a mother, sometimes when I am doing a project in my home, I actually, tend to start budgeting. I know what I allocate. And then I start going from company to company to company and making sure who is giving me what is best given, what is more buck for my bang.
Did I say that correctly?
Yes. Okay. So I do research and I make sure that everything is covered, and I want to make sure that I actually go out of the box and I speak to other people, other professionals, and make sure that sometimes I put everyone together in a room and I ask all the questions, and then I always ask people, am I missing anything, so I can make sure that we are covered, our children are covered. And I want to make sure that everyone is covered. That's why I always come out of the box. I might not be like everyone else, but I do want change. And I do want to make sure that everything and all our money is allocated in the right spots. And if I have the opportunity to be elected and I want to work with everyone that I possibly can and work with the professionals, as I stated before, to bring change. Sometimes change is a good thing, not always a bad thing.
All right, well, thank you. And that brings us to our final question of the evening. Being a board member means you will be a public servant, which is a time commitment. Besides attending board meetings, members have a responsibility to serve on committees, attend various trainings and workshops, and also attend some functions throughout the year. How do you see yourself committing the time needed to be an effective public servant? And we'll start with you, Ms. Gabriel.
I'm in. As a full-time mother, as a full-time wife, I'm in. I make meetings, I go to committees. I'm on the Run Stabilization Board. I am on the Shade Tree Commission. I go to meetings. I do programs that do take time out of my children, but sometimes I do bring my children with me. I let them see what I do, and I let them see which they are part of, and they're proud of me that they're seeing everything that's going on. And my daughter has done community service through Shade Tree Commission, so I'm all in. Because I like the fact that my kids get to see, and every child should see what their parent does, because they get a better understanding. Now I know what my parents do. Now I know what is entailed to do this type of position. Not only that, oh, my mom's going off to a meeting. It doesn't mean only that, but it does take precious time. But my kids are there with me, and sometimes they stay through it and listen and pay attention. And as a community and as a whole, I am here, and I have given my all since moment one, and still doing so.
Thank you. Ms. Jones?
I remember my mother saying to me, if you want to get something done, ask a busy person. And truer words could not be spoken. I have always been a busy person. I have always given time to things that I believed in. I've been on both the council and the board for my house of worship. I've taught teenagers there. I have coached. I have been both a Boy Scout and a Girl Scout leader. When I commit to doing something, I find the time. One of the things that I mentioned is that this seat opened up on the board right as I was about to become an official empty nester. My youngest child is buying her first home this week. So I got nothing but time right now. And because if I don't get out and do things, I'm going to have to stay home with my husband every night. And he's going to want to kick me out. So I'm not even remotely concerned about the time commitments. I researched in it, I've spoken to other board members, and I'm really comfortable with being able to give my time to the Freehold Regional High School District Board of Education. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah. From a time commitment, I look at myself and my experience at work and life. I've always been a hard worker. I've always had a ton of energy and enthusiasm for anything that I do. And I've also was instilled into me at a very young age that you don't really measure any work by, the time, the hours that you put in. You measure it by getting the job done. And that's a value that I try to instill within my own kids. If something is worth doing well, and to create an environment where our students and all of our kids and our community can truly thrive and have a positive impact on the world, it's tremendous. So I think in terms of time commitment, I never look at time. I don't wear a watch. I just don't, it's, you work until the job is done, and you continue to invest in the folks around you. And from a time commitment perspective, it's very important for us to be the voice of the community. And people want us to be accessible. You make time. So I have no reservations about that whatsoever.
Thank you. Joan?
I already responded.
That's over about.
So do I.
All right. Well, then that brings us to our closing statements. And we'll start with Joan in the middle for the closing statement.
Okay. I just want to thank Howell and Jay First for having this candidate forum. It's hard as a Board of Education candidate to get your message out. It's also really hard for the community to find out who's actually running for Board of Ed. So thank you for giving that opportunity, and thank you to everybody who took the time to come out here, and anybody who is watching the live stream, thank you. There are other things you could be doing with your day. At the end of the day, you've got some great candidates that are running both for the K through 8 and for the high school district. If I did not believe that I was the best of those candidates, I would not have entered the race, and I would not have run. We didn't have a lot of time tonight. I do have a Facebook page. Feel free to find it and find my contact information on there. You can email me, you can call me, you can Facebook message me, you can send me a text if you have any questions or anything else you'd like to know about my candidacy. But I would be honored to serve this district as a Board of Education member.
Thank you, Ms. Gabriella.
I want to thank NJ First for hosting, and all those who are taking their precious time with their families. I want to give my deepest condolences to Mr. Bruno and to his family as well. Those who know me know who I am and what I stand for. As a parent, I believe as a community, we have a moral obligation, bless you, by the way. We have a moral obligation to these children. We give every opportunity we can through programs, through grants. We have to give them the utmost chance to this life as things have been cutting off to them. I am asking because I believe that we should. I'm asking for your vote, for your support, because I believe everyone should be asked to become the next board member of the Freehold Regional High School. I want to be able to give an opportunity to bring change, that I think we need a fresh new start. I believe that we should bring a lot to the table to change the lives of, due to COVID, due to the mental health, due to budget cuts, to tax increases. We shouldn't be shocking everyone at the same time, as we just saw. But I want to thank everyone for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. And last, Michael?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you to Howell First. Thank you to Gabriella and Joan. It was a pleasure to meet both of you this evening and to hear your insight as well. When I look at it from a closing perspective, I had touched upon earlier about my history within the Freehold Regional High School district and my kids. And one of the things that we say at Howell, and I think it really extends to the entire district, is we are Howell. And I think for people that aren't part of the community or maybe live in a neighboring town, they don't really understand what that means or kind of have a full comprehension of it. It seems like a kind of a slogan or just something that people from Howell say. But for me, it's really about respect and belonging. And that starts with setting a foundation for our kids, for their teachers, and for the administrators on a whole, of really setting the gold standard and raising the bar of what it means to establish a best-in-class educational system and a stronger community behind that. So when I look at this opportunity that I have, and I look at my experience and my commitment to my own family, but the community as a whole, I believe I would be a tremendous addition to this board. I look forward to the challenges. I face them head on, and I will continue to serve the residents as well as the students and the educators across the community. So thank you so much for the opportunity this evening. I greatly appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
I want to thank the three of you for being here tonight. And Mr. Bruno, I understand elections are the bedrock of democracy. We encourage voters to get to the polls this election day and exercise your right to vote. Howell, New Jersey First is also sponsoring another Conversation with the Candidates forum on Monday, October 21st for the mayoral and council candidates. This event will be held right here in this very same room at 6:30. There'll be information on our Facebook page about that. We hope to see you there. And just a reminder to everybody that we are a nonprofit organization, so we are seeking donations, and they help us to be able to continue to hold events like this and other advocacy and education issues in Howell. So we encourage people to visit our website at howellandjfirst.com/donate. With that being said, I just want to thank everybody for being here. Thank my team that helped put this event together, and of course all the candidates. Have a good night.
Thank you. Round of applause for Howell Acres. Good.